You are now rocking with BizMode. Let's get into BizMode. What is BizMode? BizMode is entrepreneurship at its highest level. BizMode is flow state. BizMode is that hunger pain you feel. BizMode is success by your own definition. BizMode is operating from abundance. BizMode is what you make it. This is BizMode. What up, though? I am your host, Alex Bruno. I am the founder of Bruno Group Inc., a California law firm helping entrepreneurs and businesses with their legal stuff. What's up, family? This week, I want to introduce you to Arthur Garcia. Arthur is a co-founder at Somos Ancestria and Contabi Alliance. We'll find out more about Somos and Contabi in our chat, but before that, I want to give you some insight into my takeaways with my chat with Arthur. Arthur shared his story growing up in Colorado and being exposed to entrepreneurship at an early age through working in and on his family's businesses. Arthur reminds us that a key element to being successful as an entrepreneur is belief. Belief in yourself and having faith that things are going to go according to your plan and things are going to work out. Listen how also Arthur shares that the world is indeed small and that your pathway to success may not be what you expect and it may come from unexpected sources. So you must do your best to not burn any bridges or discount or discredit any relationships. Before we get into our chat with Arthur, if you can do me a favor and subscribe to our podcast, it would be super helpful in getting the word out and pursuing our mission to make sure that we inspire entrepreneurs and help to give them the tools for success. Well, let's get into our chat with Arthur Garcia. Hope you enjoy. Arthur, welcome to BizMode.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm grateful to have you on, and thank you for being on and taking us up on our invite. So, you know what, why don't we just start with talking about like who you are, what's your, and I think we mentioned it, actually, I'll give a shout out right now to Latinx America. I think you mentioned an origin story. Tell us what your superhero story was, before you got your powers.
Sure. Well, I would have to say that it came back to my days as a taquero. I had this awesome taco. My parents had a restaurant, and I don't know what was in it. This was before the quesadilla craze. But, there was something in that taco that just gave me superpowers in business, in finance, and a number of things. So, I don't know when it happened, but I did have this taco one time. And I think that's where, the superhero started. I didn't get bit by a spider. And I have to say it was a taco.
Nice. For me, it was I don't know. I was gonna say it was like a taco de suadero, like a beef shoulder for the people that don't know. But no, that was cool. But yeah, before that special taco, what was it like for you? Getting that entrepreneur spark, or just starting out and getting that experience or exposure to business.
Sure. I was halfway joking about that special taco, but I was born into a family of entrepreneurs, and as long as I can remember, the Garcias were hustlers, right? So I remember I'm Mexican American. My parents both immigrated from Mexico to the U.S. My father is from Zacatecas, a little ranchito called El Tepetate. And my mother and her family are from Delicias, Chihuahua. And they, pretty much all my extended family is in Colorado these days. But I remember growing up, and on the weekends, I would go sell tacos with my dad. We had a lonchera, and this was before taco trucks were a cool thing. There was no kind of off the grid or a place where, chipsters or hipsters would go and get their, pick of different fusion food from the food trucks, right? So this was something that I dreaded as a kid. I wanted a normal childhood, but instead, it's kind of like, well, what does normal look like? But for me, it was spending time with my father and my grandfather selling tacos in the Denver area. And we grew the business to a restaurant called Arthur Garcia, very original name. And from there, a
Right.
business of catering and a banquet hall and a number of things. But I was looking back, I'm very fortunate for that experience. Things like that. When you're living it and going through it, you don't always appreciate it. The time that I had to spend with my father and my grandfather bonding over the comal, flipping tortillas, and and taking money from the customers. That was one of my jobs. Was actually so maybe this is a lead in into the finance side is cobrando, right? So I learned to calculate. I really tacos were 150 in those days. So I learned, okay, those tacos $3. Tres tacos, all right, that's 450. All right, let's go. And so that was my experience growing up, working in the family business. I had tios that also had restaurants, also other family members that started landscaping and construction type businesses. So it's just, I would say it's in my DNA, and we're going to talk about DNA here, I'm sure. But that was my childhood growing up in Denver.
Well, it's very interesting, and I actually can relate because my mom is a hairstylist, so she used to cut hair. So I remember Saturdays for me when I was growing up was I had to go to the salon with her when everyone else was out hanging out and playing. I had to go to the salon because I was in charge of sweeping up the hair, and then afterwards, like like you said, like tracking the money, saying like what's the ledger look like and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, why can't I just everyone's playing, everyone's watching cartoons or something, and I have to go with my mom to go cut hair. Well, I didn't cut the hair, she did, because then if I cut the hair, I'd be in trouble.
Right.
But I totally relate, and I also can picture those loncheras too, the food trucks that were not so hipped out with cool graphics. It was just a white truck with the name of the business on the side. So, but it seems like you got exposed though to the business side really early on, and like you said, the finance seemed to be a part of it. So, what did that kind of help you or push you to evolve into?
Yeah, so that's a great question. People ask me often, how I got into accounting or in finance or small business. And it was just really those early days of understanding the importance of cash flow. Cash flow is king. It's one of the biggest challenges that small businesses face. And so there's an importance of having a business plan and a budget. But for me, it was totaling up those guest checks for my parents and helping them gather all the documents and provide them for their accountant. And in those days, and even today, a lot of small businesses that have that engagement with their accountant is they just dump that bag of receipts or the shoebox. They go to see their accountant once a month or once a year, and that's kind of like the dynamic of how that relationship is with individuals or even businesses with their accountant. I'm sure maybe you can relate on the legal side of things. It's like, aquí están todos mis papeles, figure it out and help me. I need legal help. But that's what I learned early on. Just the importance of running a business and how important it was to the finances. And, in my career, I progressed to work very closely with accounting professionals. So I spent a number of years working in the payroll industry, HR industry, working exclusively with accountants, banks, and small businesses, and then working in accounting technology. And just the role that an accounting professional has and they play is critical for the success of a small business. And I always, oftentimes when I speak on this, I look back, and if my parents had an accountant, if they had an attorney, if they had, the advisors that they needed, maybe they could have grown the business to have 30 Tacos Garcia in Colorado, in New Mexico, in Arizona. Like, who knows? The sky's the limit, right? Because we had awesome food. But we didn't know what we didn't know. And because the dynamic or the relationship with those professionals wasn't there, where it was very transactional, very compliance based more than advisory or proactive type of advice, I always look at that time as very limited. So one of the examples that I'll give you, Alex, is when my parents had their salon built for weddings, quinceañeras, etc. They hired an architect that they had previously done some work with to build a house, a duplex. So they figured, okay, I trust this guy. He's built something for us, and he's built houses before. Maybe he could build us a salon. So what happened is the architect built something that looked like a house, and they built it on a lot so that the salon was on the busy street so people could see it. The problem was that it was so big, and it was a storefront on the street. Was when there were parties there, you couldn't see how many people were there. So the parking lot was in the back. You couldn't really see anything. So when people are having their parties, like, where is this place? I can't find it. And when the radio station would bring in bandas or grupos to go perform there, it would look dead, right? Because who wants to go to a place where, like, you look at the line, is there a line there? Is there a lot of people there? Do I want to check this place out? Yes or no? And so we struggled with that. And, people always say that with real estate, it's location, location, location. And in this case, it was picking the right professional for the job and making sure that we had the right type of advice for the design of the entire project, which we didn't have.
Yes, I mean, that's a pertinent example of someone could be really good in one space, but they're not necessarily good in another space. It happens a lot with many professionals, myself included, where they're like, well, you can do it. And I'm like, well, no, that's not what I do. I definitely could do it, but that's not what I do. And I'd rather you go with someone more, more skilled in that area. I think the question you brought up earlier that, for many small business owners or the ones that you've seen, the interactions with certain professionals like accountants and attorneys, or even like a contractor is transactional. It's not kind of like the idea is we give them something and they take care of it. What kind of advice or kind of like frame of mind or framework you would impart on like a small business owner to say these professionals would be critical to your potential growth, and how do we kind of change that mindset, that that fear? Like sometimes it might be fear driven. I don't know what it is, but like how do we change the mindset that no, an investment in a good accountant can actually help you grow, as opposed to you're not wasting money or spending money?
Sure. Well, I think that there's a few answers to that, and the best place to start is that every small business should have a business plan, and every small business should have a budget. Those are two critical pieces to starting a business. The business plan is going to have a marketing strategy. It's going to have projections on growth. It's going to have projection on finances, and all of your projected income and expenses. And one of those line items on your budget is going to be professional services. And for professional services, you have to budget for accounting services, tax services. Many times they're two in one, depending on the service provider, and accounting services. Legal services. So accounting services and legal services should be part of the professional services line item on the budget. And so it's a cost that you have to plan for. And, you hear this a lot. You get what you pay for. Lo barato salió caro. You hear that a lot. And I think for a small business that is just starting off, you may not have a lot of income coming in. You may not have things figured out completely, right. But you need help. You need access to professionals in that space. So I believe that, one has to understand how professionals make money. And I share this all the time that, when talking about accountants make money, and it's probably similar, you might agree, to the legal space. Is accountants make money based on their experience, how many years that they've been in practice, their expertise, the specific type of businesses that they work with, e-commerce, nonprofit, professional services. Each one is going to have different expertise, and their time. So if you understand how an accounting professional makes money by their expertise, experience, and time, then when you're speaking with Alex Bruno, and I can see the certificates you have on your wall, I know that you're experienced, right? So I can tell that you're proud of your accolades and accomplishments, and you should be, and you should communicate that. And part of what you've accomplished and studied is part of the value that someone should see on why they should hire a professional, because tax law changes all the time. There's new legislation. Laws change all the time. So you want to make sure that you're working with a professional that stays up to date on that. And I know that in law, you have to keep up with continuing education. It's required to maintain your license. And same thing for an accountant. I mean, if you took a look at the tax guide, each year there's a federal tax guide and a state tax guide. And plus there's continuing education that has to be taken each year to remain in compliance. And so there's just so much that a professional is expected to know, that when you're in need, you need to be able to trust that that professional is going to be able to help you with your best interest in mind, but also the experience to help.
No, that's very spot on, and it's spot on for what you described for attorneys as well and other professionals. And I, on an anecdotal note, I feel really bad for our accountant sisters and brothers, because their continuing education requirements are a lot higher than attorneys. So I always, whenever chat with people in that field, I feel bad, because I think it's triple the amount of what they request of attorneys. So anyway, but that's not what we're talking about.
No.
But thank you for that, because I think it's important it's important to share what small businesses should plan for.
No, absolutely. And so if you're planning for those expenses and they're in your budget, then it's not going to be such a burden for you when you have to pick up the phone to call your accountant or your attorney, right? So you're already budgeting for how much you're going to spend. There's an engagement that you've agreed to. So when things come up, then you're going to be able to call your professional advisor to guide you without feeling like, every time I call, I just get a bill and I don't know what it's for. It's like, I don't even know if I should call my advisor for this. But if it's built into your budget or a retainer, then you can rest assured and you have that peace of mind.
Right. I think I had a client early on when I went out on my own, and they would text me all the time. And then they're like, I don't know how they got a hold of my mobile, but I asked them, why do you text me all the time? They're like, well, if I call you or email you, you're going to charge me. And I'm like, it's built in. Two, it's going to be easier for us to get on the phone. So let's stop that. But that was kind of interesting, because that is a common fear, is like of that sticker shock or of the unknown bill. But thank you for your kind of reason that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's easier when you think that way, like, oh, mejor llamo a mi primo or my tío that knows something about legal.
Right. Right. We have hopefully by maybe when this comes out, one of my nephews just got into law school, and I advised him that he's going to be taking over being the family counselor as soon as he gets licensed. So he better.
Awesome.
Because that is work. Shout out to my family out there. You know who you are. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit, and let's talk about what you've been. What are you up to right now?
Yeah, thank you. So working on a few things. So again, that hustle from my childhood, just has me, with wanting to have an impact on everything that I do. So one of the things that I'm working on now is Somos, and that's somosancestria.com. And so it is the first DNA ancestry service for Latinos, Latinas, Hispanics, Chicanos, Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, however you identify. This DNA ancestry service is for you. It's for us. And so the whole premise behind it is that, unfortunately, we are not represented in scientific studies, clinical trials. And so when you think of the medicines that exist today, the therapeutics that exist, the vaccines that exist, am I part of the research that's done? How am I going to react to those medicines and vaccines, et cetera? So the research shows that less than 5% of the entire available scientific studies and databases, Latinos are less than 5% represented in those. And so we're looking to fix that. And one of the ways that we do that is by providing a DNA ancestry service. And so we are the first to market that will actually break down and provide a higher resolution of your Native American DNA. And the reason I say Native American is because if anybody's taken one of these tests before, whether it's been Ancestry or 23andMe or MyHeritage, is you'll get your results. And for me as a Mexican American, I assumed that I was going to be, okay, 50% Spaniard, from Spain, Portuguese, Portugal, and then the rest is, mestizo from Mexico. And so when you take one of these other tests, you're given results just like my father received it and I received when I took those tests. Is that, okay, you're right, 48% from Spain, France, and Italy, and then the rest Native American from somewhere around here. And so there's circles around Mexico or circles around Central America or circles around the Southwest United States. But you're left with a feeling of, okay, well, tell me more. But there's reasons why this data has not been made available previously, and because there's access to the databases for governmental and political reasons. And so because Somos was initially started in Mexico, and my co-founders, shout out to Federico and Christian, are medical doctors, they've been working on this for a number of years to be able to include this as part of the service with Somos.
No, that's great, because I haven't actually taken one at all, one of those DNA tests, but it is, I've seen it before, where it's just like, it's like Native Americas or Americas, parts of Europe, like you said, and that's it. And then maybe a fraction of a sliver somewhere else around the globe. But it's great to see that with Somos, you're able to kind of break it down more granularly. So that's really cool.
Right. So there's a higher resolution that we're able to provide, and ancestry is just the beginning, right? We feel that when someone is able to learn more about their ancestral roots, de donde viene su familia, then there's a moment of, at least for me, there's a moment of enlightenment, like, wow, that's, somewhat of a mystery solved. Because unfortunately, in my family, I knew that my father was from a ranchito called El Tepetate, and that's where our family came from, and that's it. But after going through this, I know that my father was 38% Nahua, Otami, and we're working there's two specific indigenous nations that we're working to separate, but because they lived closely regionally, we've included them in our initial resolution reports. But you're able to, it kind of just makes you curious to know more. And so that's the first part that we're doing with Somos. And in the future, we want to do health traits and potential diseases that one is prone to. We like to eat a lot of vitamina T, I like to say. So vitamin T, which is, everything has tortillas, right? Chips, enchiladas, tostadas.
Right.
Tamales have corn. So it's like we're eating a lot of this vitamin. So how is this going to impact me, in the future?
Yeah. What I mean, and I know, I think for some sports, they do that. They have all this breakdown by diet, but it's really interesting to kind of get into deep as to the regions, as to the specific groupings. And you're taking me back a little bit, or not a little bit, a lot bit back to, like, I took some anthropology courses like in my undergrad. I'm like, okay. I'm starting to hear words that I haven't heard. I think, Nahua, and hearing stuff that I haven't heard in a while, but it's really, really cool, really exciting. So how's it been, kind of, getting on board with Somos, and you shouted out some of the founders, like working with founders. How's that experience been for you so far?
It's been great, because it also took me back. When I studied it as part of my undergrad, as well as a business degree, I did study history and a certificate in Chicano studies back at Colorado State. So it brought me back to my past, because it's something that I had studied as well. But I really feel that my career up to this point has prepared me for this role in this position, and helping a business get up and running and off the ground. And so a lot of the folks that we've spoken to, we're currently raising a seed round at the moment. And so there's a lot of people that get what we're doing and get the importance. Raising capital has been a challenge, and it's a numbers game. I come from a background of sales. You have to knock on as many doors as possible, and at the end of the day, the numbers will work themselves out. But we've found that a lot of especially in Latin America, a lot of the venture capital firms are so focused on fintech but not necessarily biotech or health tech. And so we want our community to be part of this because we really believe that with Somos we can create a movement to improve the future health of Latinos and Latinas. And so it's just a matter of finding the right type of investor that will be able to help us in a number of areas, right? Because our moonshot is to do precision medicine, and so we need to have investors that have experience in biotech. At the same time, we need to align ourselves with investors that can help open doors for us into the Latino community, whether that's through nonprofits or partnerships or other types of Latina founded businesses. So we're looking for very specific guidance and help, and we've gotten some great feedback. There is a community of investors out there that have been happy to help. They've asked us to provide them with a wish list of intros. And it's a small world. I mean, I think you would agree. Like, it's a small world that we live in, especially now that most things are virtual. There's so many social apps that we can invest our time into. That there's only a number, 1 or 2 degrees of separation between Latinos in tech or Latinas in finance, or etc. So the world. Is small, and due to technology, it allows us to run across individuals that we want to connect with and have different opportunities to connect with them via a warm intro or sometimes a cold one. But I guess my point is that with Somos, the idea, the concept has been well received, and so we're excited to hopefully in the near term. Close our seed round and just continue to invest in the platform and continue to build momentum into what we're looking to build.
In terms of you've done a lot in your career so far. We haven't even scratched the surface of some of these things, but fundraising is something that was probably relatively new to you to actually be actively involved in it. Is there not an aha moment, but more of like a takeaway that you got from it?
Yeah, definitely. And education is power. And because I have not been part of a fundraising effort in the past, I've been very resourceful. I've taken part in the Y Combinator startup school to learn everything that I need to about safes and to learn about financing and what a cap is. What a cap table is, because previously I was working with small businesses that are not planning to raise capital or go public anytime in the future. So I had to learn what I didn't know, because I couldn't, as a co-founder in Somos and being, part of the executive team, I have to be able to help just add value to what it is that we're doing and how we're going to do it to avoid problems in the future, both legal, tax issues in the future, issuing stock, filing an E43, everything that's involved in a startup when you're raising capital. So I didn't know all of that, even though I've been working with small businesses. I've been working with accountants for over 16 years. I had just never reached that level of the need to learn more about raising capital in the past. So it's definitely been a good learning experience, but I love it. I love that there's resources out there that are available. And, I spend my evenings and late nights just trying to read as much as I can to make sure that we're making sound and intelligent decisions on running the business and raising the fund.
Nice. And I think I've plugged this book before, and they keep, and you might have already read it, or Venture Deals by Brad Feld. I think he has a co-author with him as well. But it's a cool primer on some of this stuff. And I think the subtitle is what your lawyers know, or what you should know what your lawyers know. It has some kind of funny little title like that, but it's really a good book that I tell a lot of founders, check it out. And they, Brad Feld, and they continue to update it. So it's like they keep bringing in new additions because of stuff like a safe comes out, or, a term sheet might change a little bit, and you want to make sure you have things up to date with it. So it's always a good thing to do. And of course you're tapping into some of that YC stuff. YC has a lot of good stuff as well. So but it's good. It's good to hear, like, the fact that you like to learn and you like to do different things, and and the experience. It is definitely a different language for certain things, and of course, it's going to evolve. And I'm waiting for the next iteration, the next new fundraising tool that they're going to come out with. I mean, right now the focus is going to be crowdfunding, right? So crowdfunding is going to be the big one that people are really focusing on, the equity side crowdfunding, especially in probably a couple weeks, starting from a couple weeks from now. And by the way, we're in early March of 2021. But it's going to be interesting to see it all evolve. So cool. Good for you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, and that's another option, right? That wasn't available in the past for businesses. The whole concept of crowdfunding and how you become, do you need to be an accredited investor, or can you go and use Republic or Start Engine or WeFunder or anything like that to invest in companies that you're interested in, but don't have, the liquid assets needed to be accredited, right? Or to be an official angel investor.
Especially like it's bumping up, right? Now you can do a raise. You're going to be able to do a raise of up to 5 million, which is going to give a lot. I think there's going to be a lot more companies moving into the space. And while we're talking about VC, be on the lookout for, I don't know, this is probably an obvious prediction, but be on the lookout for more funds being raised. I know Arlen did a fundraise through Republic recently, but I anticipate there's going to be a bunch of other funds coming out soon.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
That's great.
We're a brave new world, but it should be
yes, and we just have to do our part to continue to educate people on those options, both for small businesses and potential individual investors that are just looking to get in, right? Because that's what we have to do, right? We have to take the knowledge and what we've learned and just ensure that it's available, right? That it's within reach for people that before couldn't imagine investing in a company or owning stock in a future publicly traded company in the early stages.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it's good, and the whole democratization of it. So it's really exciting to impart that knowledge and to spread it around for others. You've already given us some cool tips in terms of young entrepreneurs. I would say like a young business owner, and by young I mean not age wise, but like early on, you're starting up a new company. Depending on where you're at, it always makes good sense to have a budget. It always makes good sense to have some kind of outline plan. What's another one? So we got two of those nuggets from you. If you're given one more piece of advice for a small business, what would you tell them?
I mean, when you're starting a business, is just the whole formation, right? So, do I start as a sole proprietor? I would say if you are a sole proprietor, definitely file the SS4 and get a tax ID number, and reduce the amount of time that you're operating as a business using your social. Because every business license application, banks, everyone's going to ask you for your EIN or tax ID number. So just don't use your social. Like if you're going to operate a business, at least file an SS4. You can Google that, and you can get a tax ID number. But as you get into other entity type formations, LLCs, corporate S corps or C corps or LLCs or treated like S corps, etc., like work with an attorney. This is another plug for you, but there's so much more than value that you have. And so, I don't know if this is what you were looking to go, but just even with starting a business, an operating agreement, like that is so critical for a business, especially if you're starting with friends, family, is like you need to really have the roles and responsibilities lined up, written out, so that you're not disappointed as a founder. And so that there's no broken relationships in the future, because it happens. You might want to start a business with your two college buddies or high school friends, or and while things are great and everybody's excited about the idea, you're like, cool, we're going to split everything 33% everybody, or we'll go 50-50 if there's two of you. But then you don't put any expectations, no KPIs on what they're supposed to do, then you're going to be left with disappointment. So yes, an operating agreement formally is having one is important, but at least have a draft. Like you can get a document, a Google Doc if you want, and just start typing something out in terms of who's going to do what in your business, And when you do that and meet regularly about how much is getting done and, when those milestones are, it's going to reduce the disappointment that you have when weeks pass and months pass and you really haven't gotten any traction, and then you start blaming each other, and then you want to separate, and then it's like, well, now you need to pay me out. Wait. Well, pay you out? What do you mean? What have you put into this business? So there's so much that goes into starting a business with family and friends, or even business partners. So I would say having at least an informal who does what document with your co-founders is super important.
Like, thank you for that. I completely agree, because especially with I totally 100% agree with all you're saying. Especially if you're bootstrapped, or you might not have the resources yet, even though you're building out your budget. You might not have the budget item yet to hire someone like our office or another attorney to help you. Having something is better than nothing. So scratching something out on a Google Doc form, scratching something out. Whatever your writing platform of choice is really key, to at least, like you said, expectations. Because the biggest when companies break down, and we sometimes experience that because we're on the happy side of like, hey, we're going to start something up, but I also see it's not working out. And if they follow our advice, they're good. If they don't follow our advice, it's kind of like, okay, well, what happened? And usually what happens is those expectations that you think you've expressed, but you really haven't. And that's where the rub happens. That's where the issues arise. So thank you for that. But what's kind of been like a really rewarding for you in the last couple of years?
Stepping out in faith and betting on myself. I mean, I would say those things have proved to be rewarding. And I'll give you a few examples. I've been working for a startup tech company. I was one of the early employees there in the U.S., and I took a risk. It was a calculated risk, but I left a company where I was comfortable, and I joined a good friend of mine to start selling franchises and expanding in the tax business, because I had been preaching for years that accountants should move to the cloud and they should leave the desktop behind. But I said, you know what? I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to join a friend, and we're going to take advantage of the opportunity that exists out there. So I did that, and in doing so, there were a few asks. Number one, if I was going to leave my position, then I needed to have decision making powers, right? So with someone that owned 100% of the business. And so we came to terms on that. The other thing is that we needed to raise money in order to grow, and we're able to do that. We actually took that business to exit. The business was acquired. And then the other thing is that I needed the flexibility and ability to start the Contavi Alliance, which we haven't touched on yet. But I wouldn't have been able to do all those three things and go through the experience of due diligence and selling a business had I not left my comfortable job. I wouldn't have had the experience to start the Contavi Alliance had I not left my comfortable job. So that answers your question in terms of, betting on myself and having the faith that things were going to work out when I was put in a position of being uncomfortable. And I would flash forward and also say that again, that when last March, when the pandemic hit and my role at the company ended because a lot of our stores that were in the Northeast, had to shut down. There were tax and bookkeeping offices, brick and mortar.
Right.
I had a decision to make. I could be down on myself. I could go jump on the next opportunity, but I was patient. And when this leads up to how I met Federico and Christian. So Federico actually reached out to me on LinkedIn. So those people that say that LinkedIn is, whack or, it's broken, it's definitely helped me in my career. So Federico reached out to me because he wanted to talk to me about partnering with the previous company that I was. So at that point, I had a decision to make: blow him off. I'm upset at what happened. Or just say, hey, look, if you want a partnership, talk to these people. But instead, I took the call. I scheduled time to talk to him. got to know him and the project with Somos. And so more and more I became interested, started off as an advisor with Somos. And I was just like, wow, like I need to be a part of this. So I joined Cristian and Federico as a co-founder to bring Somos to market. But again, that comes back to your question. I bet on myself, and I had the faith that things were going to work out because I've used throughout my career my God-given talents. I've used throughout my career the relationships that I've built in order to establish partnerships. And I'm going to be speaking to some students at Colorado State University through the business school through my undergrad. They are pairing students and looking to learn more about sales and a career in sales. And so I'm going to be doing some coaching, some interviews with them. But the success that I've had in my career has been due to the relationships that I built. So if you were to ask me, okay, how do you get into sales? When do you start? You start early on in college and high school because in every job you've had, you don't burn bridges, you treat people with respect, and you command respect in everything that you do. Right? So if you want to soar with the eagles, don't run with the turkeys at any time in your career. And in the future, you're going to meet people along the way that you can call up. Hey, look, I've got this new startup that I've got this new product, and they're going to be at different companies in different roles and in positions to support you in what you're doing. So I'm fortunate and I'm blessed to have always comported myself in a gentlemanly fashion, to keep to always maintain my professionalism, in order to have a solid network and ties back to people that I've worked with, customers that I've helped in the past have all helped me in every role that I've had.
That's very very spot on. Very great advice to give. Again, you're making me reflect back to when I started out on my own about 10 years ago from a big firm. My first clients, because I was at a big firm, so it's one of those firms where the clients aren't going with you; they're staying with the firm because that's the firm name. They love the firm name. My first clients were all in my network from undergrad primarily. They were all people who all of a sudden they were in positions of power. They either started their own companies or they were decision makers in their companies they were at. So when I said, I'm a business lawyer doing business law, do you need help? They're like, where are you? Perfect. Let's slot you in. And that's how it grew. So it's a great advice to don't burn bridges and, keep in contact with people, and keep it moving. So just to go back, I do want to talk, get some insight from you on Contabia Alliance, but
Sure.
just to go back in terms of, for many people, probably for yourself too, going out on your own, betting on yourself can seem quite like scary or intimidating. Was there like I don't know if it's a mantra or something that you had that kind of grounded you to say it's going to work out? Like, how did you coach yourself to say it's going to work out?
I think it's just it's my faith, and believing that in that God has a plan, and that things are gonna work out. Especially given the situation. I live in one of the most expensive cities in the country, in San Francisco, and going out on your own, and not having that comfortable salary, and the benefits and those golden handcuffs. Like it's tough to do,
right,
for sure. And I also have 3 children, and so there's knowing that there's a lot, definitely the feeling of a lot of weight on your shoulders financially, and it's definitely hard to do. And I think the timing was right for me, and when I did it, where as opposed to in the past, I wasn't able to do it because of not feeling, it was too much of a risk to do, to just go out on my own.
Sure.
So I think that there was a point in time where, yes, it was still scary to do, but I was in a better place to be able to manage that risk a bit. And
Mm.
so I would say that's it's faith and betting on myself, and then just having built a community of people that I can connect with and support me along the way, especially on days where I felt down or maybe beat up, and kind of kept me going. So just definitely having a community of people that I can rely on, those close friends and support group and system, has definitely helped me along the way.
Let's talk a little bit about Contavi Alliance.
Sure. So the Contavi Alliance came out of my time at Zero and trying to expand the market in the U.S. Hispanic Latino space, as well as in Latin America. So, you might hear sometimes that you might know friends that are the only Latino in their tech company in sales. So I felt, there was just a few of us, and I felt, and along with some of the other people that I had hired there, that if I was not there in that position to keep pushing the envelope to get more support, to mirror the customer. I mean, we both know the numbers that Latinos and Latinas are the fastest growing entrepreneurship group in the country. But there's a lack of representation on the customer service and sales side for these small businesses. And it's a huge opportunity, and there's a gap that's being missed by a lot of these service providers that, I think there's a false sense of, if I'm going to service this community, then I need to have all of my materials translated into Spanish. If I'm going to serve this community, I need to have a full team of customer support and 10 salespeople if I'm going to do this well. But the reality is, English is fine. Most small business owners speak Spanish and English, right? They're bilingual, but it's more the messaging, right, that needs to be there. So there's marketing, there's messaging, and just the fact of acknowledging the culture and acknowledging the language. Because most of the times when I would call folks, and we would start off in Spanish, just kind of acknowledge, and then go right to English. So that's been my experience. Right. And so there was a sense that my time there is that if I wasn't there, and some of my other colleagues weren't there, that this whole initiative, these relationships that I had built in Latin America, would just disappear, because of my position at the company. So we started it out of necessity, because I had also worked with large accounting firms. And what I noticed is that a lot of large Big Four or even large top 200 firms were part of alliances, which provided them resources and discounts on software, coaching, training, educational resources, and community. And what I saw in the market was that there was not really anything for small to medium-sized accounting firms. There were things for tax professionals. There's a taxpayer association, but there was nothing for international accounting professionals for small to medium-sized firms. So, tapped my network. I connected with, so my co-founders, Joel and Hugo, we contacted our accounting partners that were in Costa Rica and Mexico, Argentina, Venezuela. And we got together and said, let's just start an alliance. Let's go out and see what type of resources and benefits, and see what kind of change we can bring to the industry, so that we can get the service, representation, resources that we need to serve our clients. So, I'm pleased to share with you, Alex, that today we're at over 60 members in the Contavi Alliance, all independent firms in 13 different countries. And the reason that's important is that now there's a community, because the world is small and because business is becoming more and more international. An accountant in Contavi doesn't have to when their client is looking to expand and start selling in Mexico, they can go in the network and find an accounting firm that's in Mexico that can get them all set up with compliance, sales tax, working with El SAT when they need to, instead of having to be that expert. When they want to venture into Costa Rica or in Argentina, and vice versa, if there's someone in one of those countries and they're looking to expand into the U.S. market, they can go into the network, get resources, guidance, and support. And so we're doing, we're just getting started. We've been able to get some support from some of our technology partners, but first and foremost, we're about building a community, providing education for our members, and elevating our profiles. For too long, and I think you've seen it, when Hispanic Heritage Month comes around, you see the top Latinos in this, the top Latinas in this, but it should be a year-round thing. There's so many talented accounting professionals out there that just aren't getting the recognition. They're not getting the spotlight that for the work that they're doing. So part of what we're doing in Contavi is giving a voice to those professionals and kind of getting them some spotlight, because at the end of the day, it's not about me and the Contavi Alliance or my co-founders. It's about our members and elevating their practice to better serve their clients, provide become a firm that their employees and their staff accountants want to be a part of, and bringing change, bringing the best in-class tools to small businesses. I mean, there's just so much opportunity for small businesses that are using antiquated tools, and they just need that modern accounting firm to come and say, look, I'm going to integrate your payments, your engagement software, your ledger software, and I'm going to put all this together for you so that way you can help your clients integrate their point of sale, their payments, their payroll, their HR, everything. And so that's just a big need that small businesses have, that we believe that members of the Contavi Alliance are well positioned to serve them.
That's very nice, and it's very cool to hear, how you're part of creating an alliance that's going to be very, very beneficial to your member firms, but also the clientele that they're impacting and they're working with. So that's really, really cool to hear, and I'm excited to see how that continues to evolve.
Yeah, I am too. And so, hats off to the team, Joel and Hugo, our directors and our members that do a lot of the work to run that operation. They've really come together nicely. And, we're our hope is to make it easier to find a trusted accounting professional that has the expertise, the knowledge for the small business owner and what they're looking for, and that may also align with them culturally, right? So because there might be a small business owner that is from Colombia and they want to work with an accountant in the US that happens to be from Colombia, or is family from Colombia that is experienced in e-commerce or in restaurants. And so when we can provide a marketplace, if you will, of vetted accountants that are credentialed,
right,
that are modern firms, that are culturally aligned and have the expertise, and I think then that is a beautiful thing. Two things is the world is a small place, and relationships are critical for anything that you're going to do in your career. So if you're a student, if you're a young person and you're thinking, okay, so what can I do today, is maintain relationships. Again, I said, if you want to soar with the eagles, don't run with the turkeys. Like if you keep with those eagles, you're going to be soaring, you're going to be doing awesome things, and you want to surround yourself with people who also want to soar and do awesome things. So it's critical to protect your circle of influence, because those same people are going to support you, push you, and hold you accountable to the things that you're looking to accomplish. So I think that is some sound advice for anyone that's looking to get into business and have success in their career.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for that, Arthur. And if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Arthur F. Garcia, and I think you might include that in the links. If you want a DNA kit, please go to Somos Ancestria, and I'll send you a promo code as well, Alex, that you can share. So somosancestria.com to order a DNA kit. If you've never taken a DNA ancestry test, if you already have, then we also have a service that you can upload your DNA, your raw file, and get your results. And if you're looking for an accountant, you can go to thecontavialliance.com, look in our member directory, and find an accountant that is right for you.
Very nice. And don't forget, since LinkedIn was special for you, they can find you on LinkedIn as well.
That's right. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so we'll make sure we'll have that in the show notes so that people can get access to that as well. Arthur, I want to thank you for sharing a little bit about what you're doing and what you've done, and for sharing your journey with us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Until next time, BizMode family, this is your host, Alex Bruno, Bruno Group Inc., BizMode Podcast. Keep your family first. Always strive for perfection. Don't forget, none of this is legal advice. By the way, what happened to peace? Peace.